Today, Vice President Harris is preparing to visit 3 battleground states, while former President Trump is set to survey the devastation from Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. And the latest 538 forecast shows this race is virtually tied. So the host of the 538 Politics podcast, Galen Druke, joins us now for much more. Galen, always good to see you. We got a new Washington Post poll out this morning. It has Trump and Harris in a dead heat, has Harris ahead in Georgia, Trump ahead in Arizona. How does this all line up with your analysis of all the polls so far?
Yeah, that was a set of polls out this morning that hit home that there's variation within the different polls out there. So showing Harris up by 6 percentage points in Georgia while showing Trump up by 6 percentage points in Arizona. I should just say that what we should really be focusing on here are the averages, because if you start focusing on any one individual poll, you can sort of get sidetracked in one narrative or another, or sort of choose your own adventure that promotes your own biases. But when you look at the average overall, you see that nationally, Harris leads by 2 percentage points. And in the key battleground states, it could hardly be closer. The two candidates are tied in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. And then in Georgia and Arizona, on average, Trump leads by about 2 percentage points. So extremely close.
Galen, I would love to have you explain. I think in the aftermath of the past 2 presidential elections, you might hear some citizens saying, oh, well, the polls got it wrong, or you can't really trust them. How much stock should we be putting in these polls in terms of what they actually tell us about the race?
Well, there's some good news and some bad news here, which is that the polls have never been perfect. And if you look over time, they are not getting that much less accurate. So the average error in a presidential race nationally is 4 percentage points. The bad news is when you have a race this close that's separated by 2 percentage points nationally, or frankly, tenths of a percentage point in the battleground states, polls that are on average off by about 4 percentage points simply aren't going to be able to tell you who will win the election. So we can sort of hold 2 things at the same time, which is that polling is our best tool for understanding the horse race. It's applying the scientific method to trying to understand what Americans think about the race. But at the same time, as has always been true, we should expect a degree of polling error. So at this point in the race, I don't think you can look to the polls reliably to say who is going to win. It just gets you relatively close to understanding the parameters within which the election will fall.
I think it's fair to say, Galen, that a lot of Americans are very passionate about which candidate they're supporting, and they're pretty locked in as to who they are going to support. But we have this dead heat. So who are the voters that are going to be key to who is going to win, and how is each candidate trying to reach those voters?
Yeah, so in these final 2 weeks, who are those undecided or swing voters? It's a good question. And if you look at our national polling average, you'll see that if you add up Harris and Trump's support together, you only get to about 94, 95%. So there's 5% roughly of Americans out there who have not committed to one candidate or the other. Some of those folks will end up voting third party, but some of those folks will also end up voting for Harris or Trump in the end. There's also another population of voters that pollsters ask about who may say that they're voting for Harris or Trump today, but may not be fully committed. And so what do we see about the characteristics of those voters when we look at the polls? Those voters tend to be younger, they tend to be slightly more male, and they tend to be more likely to be voters of color. And this is a little bit different of a picture of the swing voter or the undecided voter than we're used to hearing about. You know, we oftentimes hear pundits or even campaigns talking about suburban women, and that is maybe part of the equation. Suburban women who used to be Republican, who may be trending left. But really, when you look at the polls, overrepresented in that undecided or swing vote category are younger men of color.
38 Politics podcast host Galen Druke, thank you so much for your time. Always nice to talk to you, and there will be much more on this in the next 15 days.